I never thought a millionaire's girlfriend would see my son's ghost in a homeless boy. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started with a chilling silence that wrapped around me like a dark cloak. I sat on the edge of my rickety bed, heart racing, fingers trembling. The room was cluttered, shadows dancing on the walls, memories trapped in the faded wallpaper. My son, Jason, had been gone for 2 years, yet the pain felt as fresh as the day they told me he was gone that I blinked away tears, each drop a fragment of my shattered heart. I could still see his bright smile, the way it lit up the room. I remember how we used to laugh together, the sound echoing in our cozy kitchen, the scent of warm cookies filling the air. Now, it was just me and the ghosts of our past. Then I met her. Veronica, the striking girlfriend of a local millionaire. She radiated wealth, confidence, and that often-missed spark of compassion. We crossed paths one rainy afternoon at the charity event thrown by her boyfriend. I was there, trying to find some hope in the brokenness of my life. The energy pulsed like a live wire, but I felt like a ghost, slipping through the crowd unnoticed. But Veronica, she stopped. She turned her gaze toward me, and for a split second, the bustling crowd faded away. It was as if the universe had aligned. "You look familiar," she said, her voice smooth, yet trembling as if afraid she'd break something fragile. A fateful question lingered in the air between us. And then this homeless boy appeared. Dirty, wide-eyed, and lost. He had a haunted look that froze my blood. Shock gripped me as I noticed the way Veronica's face paled. She gasped, and in that moment, I felt the world stop. Her eyes widened with recognition. "Oh my God," she whispered, a quiver in her voice. "He looks just like Jason." I felt a jolt in my chest. My heart pounded. How could she know? My Jason, and this homeless boy. The resemblance was uncanny. My pulse raced, fear and confusion knitted together in an unholy tapestry. I wanted to scream, to throw my arms around this boy, but fear held me back. Veronica's eyes shimmered with tears, a strange mix of empathy and horror. "I see him," she whispered again, her breath catching. "Your son, he's here." Some people watched, whispers swept through the crowd. Shocked gasps, muffled whispers, a collective gasp of disbelief echoed around us. My entire world felt like it was crumbling. All my grief, all my pain twisted into this bizarre moment. I couldn't breathe. Was it a miracle? Or a cruel twist of fate? I took a step closer, feeling the weight of their gazes. The world was watching, and yet, I was utterly alone. I could see the boy now, shivering despite the warm sun, eyes filled with a sorrow beyond his years. Time stood still. What was going to happen next? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I stood there, the crowd a distant hum, as if the very air around us had thickened with grief and disbelief. My heart was a wild drum, echoing in the vast emptiness of the world I had known. Jason's ghost, if that's truly what this was, lingered within the dirty clothes of this boy, etched onto his fragile face. I wanted to reach out, to comfort him as I had in my dreams, to gather up the scattered remnants of my hope. "Oh my God," Veronica murmured again, stepping closer, her eyes shimmering in the bright afternoon light. "I'm so sorry." Her compassion felt like a balm against my fraying edges. Yet, amidst her empathy, there was a thread of fear weaving itself through her words. She was a woman of privilege, and I was a shadow from a life she couldn't understand. How could she grasp the depths of this moment when her own world seemed so far removed from my reality? each second felt like an eternity as the homeless boy shifted his eyes from me to Veronica, confusion whirling in those bright orbs. "What's happening?" he whispered, his voice fragile, yet filled with unyielding strength that belied his appearance. He was fighting to stay grounded, to make sense of this collision of lives. I felt an aching connection to him, a sadness that ran deeper than the loss I had buried for 2 years. "Can I talk to him?" I finally managed to whisper to Veronica, who studied me intently, the weight of my desperation reflected in her wide eyes. She nodded, her expression fierce with determination. The moment stretched, each heartbeat echoing in the thick air that I knelt before the boy, bringing myself to his level. "What's your name?" I asked softly, my voice breaking. I didn't know what I was searching for: an answer, a glimmer of hope, or perhaps a connection to my past that felt so tantalizingly out of reach. "Sam," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper, yet filled with an emotional surge that pulled me in, tethering our spirits momentarily. "I was just wandering." "Wandering where?" I pressed gently. "Have you seen him?" "My son." A flicker of understanding crossed Sam's features, making my breath catch. "Sometimes, he comes to me at night. Tells me things." His small hands trembled. "He said you miss him." Tears streamed down my cheeks, unbidden. "Oh, Sam. I miss him so much." I fought against the overwhelming wave of emotion that threatened to drown me. Veronica crouched beside me, her presence a mix of warmth and certainty. "Maybe he's trying to tell you something. He was loved, you know that, right?" I nodded through my sobs, my heart a tumultuous sea of memories and yearning. Yet, her words ignited a flicker of hope. Could Jason really be out there, trying to reach out from beyond? As the crowd whispered around us, watching this vulnerable intersection of souls, their judgment seemed to hang heavy in the air. But then one person stepped forward, a woman in a faded coat. "I saw the boy before," she said, her voice wavering with a mix of sympathy and determination. "He used to sit outside the bakery, said he could see ghosts." Caught off guard, I glanced at Sam. "Is that true? Can you see other ghosts, too?" He blinked, a spark of mischief momentarily replacing his fear. "Sometimes," he replied, a shy smile cracking through the grief. "They talk to me and tell me secrets that my heart surged with the heaviness of revelation, battling against the unrelenting tide of sorrow." "What secrets?" I asked, half afraid of the answer. "Things about love, things about loss," he said, narrowing his eyes as if trying to remember something profound. "But they say you should never hold on to it too tightly. Let it go." Veronica's hand gently squeezed my shoulder as if anchoring me. This connection we formed felt fragile yet fierce. But looking at Sam, I felt like I was standing on a precipice, terrified of what awaited on the other side, and just as I opened my mouth to ask more, the sky darkened. A thunderous clap of thunder boomed overhead, startling everyone. The warm sun vanished, replaced by brooding clouds, and raindrops began to pelt the ground. Panic rippled through the onlookers, people began to scatter in search of cover. "Go!" I yelled to Sam, instinctively reaching out, but a chaotic rush of bodies disrupted our moment. He vanished into the fray, and I felt my heart race with unease. "Sam!" I cried, pushing through the crowd, but it swirled around me, indifferent. The last bit of hope evaporated as I turned back to Veronica, to find her reflection of fear mirroring mine. "He can't be gone!" I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat, but as the storm unleashed its fury, suddenly, typical of fate's cruelty, a realization struck me like lightning. The boy's resemblance to Jason was a menace of memories but also a call to confront my past. And in that moment, as the heavens wept alongside me, I realized that our lives were irrevocably intertwined, and perhaps there was so much more at stake than I understood. The thought left me reeling, standing amongst the chaos, drenched in the truth that finding Sam might just lead me to a decision that would change everything. The rain hammered down, a relentless drumming that drowned out the frantic cries of the crowd. I stumbled, disoriented, my vision blurred by tears and the cascading water. Frantic and desperate, I pushed through the throngs of bodies, my heart pounding in a racing tempest of fear and anxiety. Sam! Where are you? My voice was raw, a desperate plea that echoed against the sounds of panic around me. Every face I encountered was a wall, each person moving as if choreographed by an unseen hand, deaf to my anguish. In the shouting and rushing, I allowed myself to be swept along, hoping I didn't even know what I was hoping for. I just needed to find him. If only I could get one more chance to understand the connection between us, the strange link to my lost son. As I rounded a corner, the rain began to ebb just slightly, but the commotion was still thick. I pressed on, squinting through the dim light cast by the scattered street lamps straining to pierce the gloom. Suddenly, I caught sight of a familiar huddle under a wide awning. A group of rough-looking men had gathered around something, their voices raised in urgency. I approached cautiously, an uneasy knot forming in my stomach. As I drew closer, my heart sank. It was Sam. He crouched on the ground, shivering and soaked, one of the men brandishing a half-empty bottle, his intentions unclear. Sam! I called, charging forward. The men turned, and the tension in the air sharpened, their faces morphing from casual curiosity to something darker. What do you want, lady? One of them sneered, his tone filled with derision. You know this kid? He's ours now. The fear in Sam's eyes broke open a chasm inside me, and I felt adrenaline spur through my veins. Let him go. He hasn't done anything. My voice cracked, a plea and a command all rolled into one. The leader of the group smirked, inching closer to Sam, but I didn't hesitate. I rushed forward, grabbing Sam's thin arm. Come with me, now. But before I could pull him up, the other men moved in, surrounding us, forming a barrier. You're making a mistake, one growled, taking a menacing step toward me. You want to help him? We're just giving him what he asked for, a little guidance. Before I could respond, Sam looked up at me with a mixture of fear and something else, trust. They were just talking to me. His words came strained and fragile, and I felt my heart crack a little more. Talking? About what, Sam? I didn't want to let go of him, yet the fiery confrontation was starting to spark and ignite a fuse I didn't know how to extinguish. About you, he whispered, glancing nervously at the men. And Jason. The weight of his words hit my gut like a punch. Jason? How could he possibly know? What did they say? From the corner of my eye, I saw Veronica approaching through the thinning crowd, her face set in determination. I could still feel the chaotic energy of the storm swirling around us, grinding my heart against the unforgiving reality of this moment. Enough. I shouted, raising my voice above the din. We're leaving. I pulled on Sam's arm again, desperation coursing through me. At that moment, Veronica reached us, her eyes wide with fear and determination. Step back. She yelled at the men, her voice sharp, cutting through the confusion. You don't want to mess with me. I'll have you arrested. For a fleeting second, surprise flickered in their eyes, and I felt the tension crack. Suddenly, like a dam breaking, Sam scrambled to his feet, grasping onto my wrist with fingers that felt wafer-thin, fragile yet filled with a surprising strength. Let's go, I urged, gripping Sam tightly as I pulled him closer. Though the men sighed in defeat, watching us with narrowed eyes, they unveiled no more threats. Perhaps there was something beyond just a physical confrontation, the realization that I not only wanted to protect this boy, but I also needed him in ways I couldn't yet articulate. As we stepped away from the shadow of those men and into the rainfall that felt almost cleansing, I turned to Sam with more urgency than I intended. What did they say about Jason? But before he could answer, a crack of lightning split the sky as if the universe had chosen this moment to interject. And in the blinding flash, for the briefest of moments, I saw a figure, a boy standing far above, cloaked in light. My breath caught in my throat. Jason? I whispered, holding on to hope like it was a tether to reality. Is that you? When I looked back to Sam, his expression had shifted, fear mingled with recognition. He's waiting for you, he murmured softly, barely audible above the onslaught of raindrops. You have to go find him. The storm seemed to pull me in and churn my insides, leaving me breathless. What did he mean? But as I turned to address Veronica, ready to voice the chaos swirling in my mind, darkness swept over us once more, not from the clouds but from the depths of my own journey. Something deeper was happening, far beyond the realm of what I could possibly grasp, and before I could inhale that fractured truth, rain began to mix with my tears, leaving me drenched not just in the storm but in the dawning realization that time was running out, and I had to confront not only my past but the future awash in uncertainty. I could barely process Sam's words before the world around me spiraled once more into chaos as thunder rumbled ominously overhead. Panic tightened my chest like a vice, and I glanced at Veronica, who was surveying the horizon as if looking for a way out of this descent into despair. "Sam," I said, forcing myself to focus on the boy, his eyes wide, reflecting the erratic dance of light and shadow caused by the storm. "What do you mean he's waiting for me?" "Who is waiting?" The rain had picked up again, each drop a reminder of the urgency clawing at my insides. He hesitated, his gaze darting back toward the group of men, still lurking in the shadows like phantoms, waiting to snatch anything fragile that strayed too close. "Jason, he's lost," Sam said quietly, his voice almost drowned out by the furious patter of the rain. "I think he needs you." The mention of my son felt like a knife against the backdrop of this tumultuous night, a haunting echo that pulled at my heartstrings. "But how? You can't possibly know him." My voice trembled, uncertainty battling the flicker of hope ignited by Sam's words. "They were talking about the past," Sam replied, stepping closer, his expression earnest, almost solemn. "They said you pushed him away, that you didn't care enough to see him." A hot wave of shame washed over me, the memories flooded back moments I had run from, pieces of my heart I had buried in an effort to move on. "That's not true. I loved him. I still love him," I protested, the denial spilling out of me. I felt the weight of the clouds above, a reflection of the storm in my heart, and I clung to Sam as if he were a lifeline. Just then, the ground trembled beneath us, an unexpected tremor that sent a shockwave of fear surging through the crowd. People began to scream, the chaos intensifying as they scrambled for shelter, instinctively drawn to flee from whatever madness was unfolding. "Come on," I urged Sam, gripping his wrist tightly as I turned toward Veronica, our eyes locking with an urgency that said without words, "We need to get out of here." As we moved deeper into the encompassing rain, seeking refuge beneath an overpass, the echo of footsteps behind us surged with purpose. Glancing back, the rough men were following, silhouetted against the rain-soaked street lights, a hunting party fueled by a strange mix of menace and ambition. Veronica pulled out her phone, her jaw clenched. "I'm calling the police." Don't." I interrupted, cutting off the urgency in her voice. "If they're connected to Jason somehow, I can't risk them knowing we're involved." The weight of my words struck hard, reverberating with a truth I couldn't quite comprehend. "What do you mean?" Sam asked, confusion flickering across his delicate features. "Is he in danger?" I looked down at him, realizing just how intertwined our fates had become in this moment. "I don't know, but I can't let them hurt you. I want." Pushing forward, we moved into a narrow alleyway, rain splattering against brick walls, the storm now a raging siren in our ears. The sound of my heartbeat mingled with the fierce patter of rain, the fear roiling as I realized that my search for Jason wasn't just a literal one, it would pull open wounds I thought had long since healed. With every step, doubt wrestled with hope, each beat of my heart echoing a question: what had I really lost? And then, in an unexpected twist of fate, I found a moment of kindness. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman, her face partially obscured by the heavy rain but radiating an air of quiet strength. "In here," she called to us, waving her arm as she pointed toward the open door of a small abandoned storefront. "Quick," Veronica urged, pulling us forward as we rushed inside, panting and soaked to the bone, the door slamming shut behind us. The sound reverberated against the walls, creating a sudden cocoon of muted safety amid the chaos outside. Once inside, the darkness enveloped us like a shroud, but the flicker of hope penetrated through the shadows. The dim light revealed a makeshift sanctuary, a collection of mismatched furniture, old blankets, and flickering candles creating a warm atmosphere amidst the storm's relentless cries. "Thank you," I managed to say to the stranger, who watched us with kind yet cautious eyes, seemingly aware of the tempest raging outside but unfazed. grounded in her compassion. "Stay quiet," she whispered, her voice soothing, yet firm. "They won't follow you in here. Not unless they're looking for trouble." As the pounding outside eased slightly, I pulled Sam closer, my body instinctively shielding him from the harrowing uncertainty. He glanced at me, his eyes wide and reflective, holding a depth that terrified me. "What if they find us?" he asked, and I heard the tremor in his voice. "We're safe." But before I could finish, a loud thump reverberated on the other side of the door, a powerful blow that sent shivers through my core. I whipped my head toward it, breath held tight in my chest, anticipation gnawing at my instincts as heavy footsteps thudded ominously. I had once thought I could confront whatever lay ahead alone, but now I realized the truth. The journey was woven not only with painful memories of the past but also the fragile threads of new connections that could either buoy us through this storm or drown us in its wake. "Get ready," I whispered, my heart thundering in my chest, a chorus set to the rhythm of Sam's rising fear. Each sound outside was a reminder that our unresolved past was nipping at our heels, and we were perilously close to unveiling something unexpected. And as I turned to face the door, its wooden frame battered by fate, my heartbeat echoed a terrifying question: would we emerge from this storm as survivors, or would the truth tear us apart? The door creaked ominously as another blow landed against it, a stark reminder of the danger that lurked just outside our fragile sanctuary. The kind stranger's eyes widened, her expression tightening as she stepped closer to us. "Stay back," she urged, her voice steady despite the storm of chaos brewing outside. I gripped Sam's hand, the warmth of his small fingers a beacon of reassurance in this suffocating darkness. "We need to find a way out of here," I muttered under my breath, scanning the room for an escape route. In the flickering candlelight, old, dusty windows lined the walls, some cracked and broken, but ultimately they were sealed shut against the raging weather. Suddenly, I felt a nudge at my side. It was Veronica, her face pale yet determined. "We can't just sit here. They'll find us," she insisted. "We have to do something now." The tension in the air thickened as another pound resonated through the door, shaking the very foundations of our temporary shelter. A sickening knot tightened in my stomach. Jason's name hovered at the edge of my mind, tethering me to a past I had tried so desperately to escape. What did he want from me? And what secrets had I unknowingly buried in the depths of my heart? "Look," the stranger said suddenly, her voice rising above the clamor outside. "There's a back entrance. We might be able to slip out that way, but we need to move now." Hope ignited at the suggestion, yet it was underscored by an urgency that threatened to consume us all. I nodded, my resolve hardening. I had to protect Sam, had to reach Jason before whatever darkness was chasing him swallowed him whole. The woman led us through a narrow corridor at the back of the storefront. The wooden floors creaked beneath our feet, each step a reminder of the stakes at hand. I could feel the panic building around us, the echoes of fear spilling into the damp walls. Just as we reached the exit, the door rattled violently. The men outside were relentless. "What do we do now?" Sam's voice quivered, filled with fear. I knelt down to his level, searching for a way to reassure him. "We stay together. No matter what happens, I promise you, I won't let anyone hurt you." With hurried glances exchanged, we crept toward the back door. The stranger pushed it open, revealing a narrow alley washed in sheets of rain. The storm had a chilling breath, but there was a hint of freedom, just a heat, a potential path to escape. As we stepped outside into the deluge, a blinding flash of lightning illuminated the night, casting long shadows against the brick walls. I caught a glimpse of the figures waiting by the main entrance, their faces twisted in menace. Panic threatened to grip me again, but I focused on Sam, clenching my hand around his, as I pulled him forward. "Run!" I shouted into the chaos, my voice swallowed by the storm as we dashed through the alley, adrenaline coursing through my veins. With each breath, I could hear Sam's heart racing alongside mine, a mirroring of our fear and determination. Just as we rounded the corner to escape their pursuit, an unexpected figure emerged from the shadows. A boy, no older than Sam, drenched and shivering, dirt smudged across his face. The ghost. Sam gasped, his eyes widening in shock, recognition dawning in his expression. The boy resembled Jason in some ethereal way, a fleeting image of innocence wrapped in tattered clothes. My heart stopped for a beat, a strange connection surfacing, but before I could process it, he turned and fled down another alley, weaving through the rain-soaked echoes of the night. "Sam, wait!" I called out, torn between the boy who had just crossed our paths and the promise of safety. But Sam was already moving, following the boy deeper into the labyrinth of alleys. "Sam! Come back!" I cried, fear piercing through my voice, but my legs felt heavy as uncertainty weighed down my resolve. The rain continued to pour, blurring the edges of reality, and within that moment of fear and confusion, the boy vanished around a corner, leaving us teetering on the precipice of a choice too heavy to bear. With an urgency that surged through me, I turned back toward the stranger, who had followed us into the storm. "We can't let him out of our sight." But inside me, a battle-ragged shadow of doubt creeping in. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice strained with concern. "Don't you think he's—" Before she could finish her thought, thunder rumbled above, drowning her out, and I felt a desperate surge of instinct. "All I know is that if he saw something, if he knows where Jason is, we can't just let him go." My heart raced as I prepared to follow, unyielding in my resolve, every fiber of my being yelling to hold on to hope. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the mouth of the alley, and I turned, dread washing over me. We were running out of time. Together, with our hearts pounding as one, we dove into the torrential embrace of the storm. But as the rain washed over our fears, one thought repeated, heavy in my mind: what if this was all leading me to something unimaginable? Something that could reshape everything I thought I understood about love, loss, and redemption. As we rushed into the darkness, the final crash of thunder split the sky, leaving behind a haunting question that echoed in the rain-soaked night: was I ready for the truth I had buried deep within my past? The rain blurred the alleyway, transforming the world into a watercolor of emotions and urgency. I could feel the pounding of my heart mingling with the drumming of the rain, each droplet a reminder of the time slipping away. "We have to go, now," I insisted, glancing back at the stranger and Sam. The alley stretched before us, a twisted labyrinth that felt more like a maze of fear than a path to safety. Every shadow loomed larger, every flicker of light seemed to taunt us with the might of what was waiting at the end: protection or danger. As we ran, I silently prayed that the boy would lead us somewhere safe. I couldn't shake off the feeling that he was connected to everything I was running from. "Wait!" Sam's voice cut through the rain, tinged with a mix of anxiety and awe. I skidded to a halt, my heart dropping as I turned to face him. What if he knows Jason? What if he knows how to find him? "That's exactly why we need to keep moving," the stranger interjected, urgency lacing her tone. "We can't linger, those men will be on us any second." That I turned back down the alley, willing myself to focus, but Sam's gaze was fixed, his small form trembling. "He looked just like Jason." Sam's voice trailed off, filled with confusion. A wave of guilt washed over me. I knelt beside him, brushing the wet hair from his forehead. "I know it's hard, sweetheart. But we can't chase dreams right now. We have to survive." My heart ached for him, for the reality of lost childhood and grief he bore so heavily. He pressed his small fist to his chest, clearly torn. "But what if he needs us? What if he's lost?" The innocence in his voice shattered me further. He had such a beautiful heart, one that felt the wounds of strangers. That I glanced down the alley, where the boy had disappeared. A part of me wanted to scream, "Wait! Come back!" But the truth was, I wasn't even sure who he was. All I had of Jason were fractured memories and shadows of a love now darkened by secrets. Suddenly, we were jolted back to the present as the sounds of footsteps grew louder, the malevolence of their presence gnawing at our heels. "We have to go," the stranger insisted, pulling at my shoulder with fierce determination. "There's strength in numbers, but out here it's just safer together," I finished, though my heart wavered. I turned to Sam, whose eyes mirrored the urgency I felt within. "We need to find shelter, and fast." That I in an instant, the direction shifted as the stranger spotted a faint light at the end of the alley. Hope flickered in my chest as we raced toward it, the glow promising not just safety, but an escape from the spiraling chaos. As we reached the opening, I allowed myself a moment to glance back, but when I did, I caught a murmur in the corner of my eye, the boy, barely visible, watching us from a distance. An ache filled my chest. Was he merely a shadow of our past or a beacon guiding us to the truth? It felt as though the world was testing me, stretching the seams of my heart. Mom. Look. Sam's voice called, excited and slightly muffled by the thunder overhead. I turned. The light, now brighter, originated from a seemingly abandoned shop, its door ajar, promising warmth. Without waiting for my consent, Sam darted inside, propelled by childlike resolve. My heart raced as I followed, glancing over my shoulder one last time toward the boy just as the rain intensified, obscuring everything from view. I felt like I was leaving a piece of my heart behind. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of old wood and dampness. The stranger dove for cover near a window while I ushered Sam close to the door, my instincts telling me to secure our surroundings. The shop was cluttered, remnants of a life once vibrant tumbling together in misplaced haste, like pieces of the puzzle I was desperately trying to complete. Everywhere I looked, bits of history whispered stories long untold, yet I couldn't connect them to my own winding tale. Mom. Sam's voice cut through my reverie. I turned to him, his wide eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight. What if he's trying to tell us something? What if the boy knows where Jason is? Hope flared within me, fierce and bright amidst the shadows of doubt. The stranger approached, her expression softer now, and for a moment, we shared a silence steeped in understanding a shared burden of loss and uncertainty. Sometimes the past reaches out to us in unexpected ways, she said quietly, almost to herself, but I heard. But whether it holds the key to your future, that's a risk we'll have to take. And just as that grain of hope settled, the door swung open again, and the figures we had fled from stormed in, their silhouettes darkening the entrance like harbingers of fate. Yet I started to shout, but a voice I recognized cut through the chaos. Stop right there. My breath caught as Jason's name reverberated in the air, confusion lacing every inch of my being. Jason? I barely managed to ask before a wave of shock rippled through me. The figure stepping into the flickering light was not Jason, but someone familiar, someone I had thought lost forever, a ghost from my past that had now returned to realign the shattered pieces of my present. Surprise, she smirked, her eyes glinting with mischief. Miss me? Before I could process the shock, a new kind of terror gripped me. Had she been behind everything? My heart raced, knowing some secrets were too dark to unearth fully, and yet here we stood, tangled in a web of unresolved emotions and unspoken truths, at the brink of a revelation I never saw coming. The girl I thought I had left behind, the one whose laughter used to fill my life with light, now stood before me, wrapped in shadows that clung to her like a second skin. Lauren, I breathed, the name hanging in the air, electrified with hesitation and disbelief. Surprise, she said again, her smile a veneer, masking intentions I couldn't begin to decipher. My heart raced as fear twisted and coiled within me. What are you doing here? How do you know about us? Each word felt like a plea, a desperate grasping at control when all around me was chaos. I've always known. Her tone was unsettlingly casual, as though she hadn't just crashed into my life after all this time. And I see you've brought a friend. The little sidekick, she added, glancing at Sam, who was pressing himself against the back wall, wide-eyed and trembling with uncertainty. Get away from him! I shouted, positioning myself protectively in front of Sam, who shrank under my outburst but clutched my shirt tightly. Lauren merely chuckled, a sound that twisted painfully in my chest. You think what I want is to hurt him? You're still thinking like you did back then. Poor little wounded bird. Stop it, I demanded, though the intensity of my fear spilled through every letter of my command. In this moment, the familiar feeling of powerlessness washed over me, mingled with sharp memories of the Patan era when her laughter was my light, when my mistakes led to an abyss darker than I could handle. Is that what you really think? That I'm here to hurt you? Her eyes glinted, reflecting the candlelight, but they held a depth that felt both familiar and foreign. No. She waved her hand dismissively. I'm here because I want to help you. I thought you might need it, given that you're being hunted, clarity began to dawn, veiled in disbelief. Hunted? By who? You think I trust you? The words burst from me, tinged with desperation. You're the one who left because I thought I was protecting you. Her voice rang with a fierce edge, and for a moment, I caught a glimpse of the girl I fell in love with, the one smothered under layers of secrets and choices made out of fear. You don't know the half of it, Lauren. We were living in a dream, and now, she interrupted with intensity, is the time to wake up. Her gaze flickered to the shadows outside, the looming figures still encroaching on our makeshift refuge. If you don't trust me, at least trust that they'll tear apart everything you hold dear to find you and him. The gravity of her words settled heavily in the air, and I felt Sam shift beside me, a gentle tugging at my heart, reminding me of the stakes. I didn't want to expose him to the danger we were running from. Then, reality clawed at my thoughts. I was running, hiding, but was there truly nowhere left to turn? You might as well come forward, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. They have eyes everywhere. I've seen it, you've been marked. Marked? I echoed, my throat dry and tight. What are you talking about? Your son's name is not just a memory to them, it's a symbol. It signifies something they wouldn't want outsiders to uncover. Trust me, we need to leave this place. You saw the boy in the alley, didn't you? Of course, I replied, the thought already sending shivers down my spine. But what does he have to do with this? The boy was sent to find you. He knows where Jason is. Lauren's eyes widened, desperate for me to grasp the gravity of her revelation. I can help you. We can protect your son. That flicker of hope ignited a war within me, battling against the suffocating clutches of doubt. As anger surged in my veins, I wanted to lash out at her. Each moment I spent tangled up with her reeked of nostalgia laced with dark undertones. And why should I believe you now? You left us behind. You abandoned Sam that I didn't abandon you. I left to protect you. She shouted, the rawness of her emotions surging to the forefront. Those men, they were hunting me, too. For what I knew. And to find you was to experiment with how far they could go. She was trying to twist my words, to inject them with the foundation of love and safety we once shared. But Sam took a step forward, his small hand wrapping around my leg. Mom, he said softly, if she says the boy knows where Jason is, maybe we have to believe her. That I clenched my jaw, pain twisting in my stomach. This was not how I wanted to have this conversation, a conversation pregnant with too many ghosts, too many secrets buried beneath lies. No, we can't, I whispered urgently, glancing back at the dark entrance, feeling trapped between two worlds that I didn't know how to reconcile. But even as I tried to grasp at the remnants of control, another sound echoed from outside, the sound of another footstep, closer this time. He's here. Lauren hissed, urgency wrapping around her words. We have to move. We're running out of time. As her command pierced through the storm of confusion and rage within me, I felt the weight bearing down on our small group, the boy in the alleyways, Jason's memory, and now Lauren's tumultuous arrival. The twisted journey we had been on now felt like a teetering cliff, and I couldn't tell if it was hope or despair that would shove us over the edge. Then, before I could decide on our next move, Sam pulled away from me. I don't want to lose you, Mom. I need to know about Jason. And just like that, the pieces began shifting once more, a puzzle connecting with edges I had long thought frayed. But the shadows outside stirred, inching closer, and as I reached for my son, I felt the pulse of something darker settling in the air, a revelation that would challenge the very fabric of our existence. I promise, Lauren whispered fiercely, stepping closer to Sam and me, if we work together, I can help us find him. The boy is like a beacon, he knows. But if we don't move now, then what? I asked sharply, adrenaline coursing through me. What happens if we stay? Her eyes narrowed into the dark, and in that moment, everything hinged on her next words, the answer I feared but needed. Then the very ghosts we've tried so hard to outrun will consume us all. With the threat closing in, my heart thundered as a new path unfolded, one that braided hope and despair together. I took a deep breath, weighing the impossibility of choice against the dire need to protect my son. I reached for Sam, and together, we stepped toward an uncertain future, where secrets wove tighter into the lives we desperately sought to reclaim. But as we braced ourselves to run, the door shattered open, revealing not just shadows, but a deeper truth lurking behind the ties of family, love, and betrayal. Let's move. Lauren shouted, throwing herself into unison with us as we fled deeper into the labyrinth of a city draped in uncertainty, each heartbeat a reminder that the past was never truly behind us. The cold night air sliced through us as we raced down the dimly lit alley, our footsteps echoing ominously against the brick walls, like a sinister countdown. The world around me blurred into a distortion of shadows and whispering fears, overwhelming and disorienting. Lauren was ahead, guiding us, each frantic gaze over her shoulder a reminder that danger lurked in our wake. "Hold on tight, Sam," I shouted, as I glanced back, half expecting to see the dark figures pursuing us, their presence coiling like tendrils around my throat. Sam's small hand wrapped around my fingers with an unwavering grip, a tether to courage that I needed more than ever. As we turned a corner, a flicker of movement caught my attention. A flicker of desperation in the form of a child crouched beneath a garbage bin, a homeless boy watching us with wide, searching eyes. Something about him, the way he peered into the darkness, held a familial tug that made my heart clench. My breath caught in my throat, the fleeting glance felt like a siren call, an unfinished chapter wrapped in ghostly echoes. "Mom. We can't stop." Sam pulled on my arm, panic lacing his voice, grounding me back in the urgency of our escape. "Just a second," I replied, torn between the instinct to protect my son and the pull of the unknown. I could still feel the boy's gaze burning into me, and in that fleeting moment, I recognized a sorrowful familiarity, eyes of another boy I once held close. Lauren beckoned anxiously, "We need to keep moving. I can't promise they won't find us if we stop." But even her urgency couldn't drown out the memories swelling inside me, tying me back to that moment. "What's your name?" I blurted at the boy, who flinched but made no move to hide. "Eddie," he croaked, his voice ragged, eyes flickering with an energy I didn't understand. "You're looking for Jason, aren't you?" My heart plummeted at the mention of my son's name, juxtaposed with the revelation that this boy seemed to know. "How do you know that?" I asked, caution igniting within me. "Because I can see him," Eddie whispered, his gaze unwavering, though shadows danced on his skin. "He's here. He's always close." A jolt of hope battled against the weight of despair. This connection to Jason felt potent, palpable, like the brush of a feather against my spirit. But the world was pulling me hard between the peril of our present and the flicker of promise in Eddie's words. I could see Lauren stiffen, her features shadowed as tension morphed over her familiarity with the night's dangers. "We don't have time for this," she urged, frustration edging her voice. "We have to go." No. I countered, my voice rising. "He might know something." I turned back to Eddie, fear churning in my stomach. "What do you mean you can see him? Can you help us find him?" The moment hung heavy, filled with the promise of everything I had sought for so long. As if sensing my desperation, Eddie stepped forward, voice suddenly sharper. "He's not just lost. They need him for what he can do." "Who needs him?" The question clawed from my lips, my heart racing. The shadows outside felt thick, their presence suffocating. "The ones who hunt," Eddie replied, the words chilling me in ways I couldn't articulate. "They'll stop at nothing. But you can still save him if you let me help you. If you trust me." Trust. Could I afford to trust anyone, least of all a child molded by the harshness of life on the streets? But then again, if trust had been the architect of my past pain, maybe it could also be the cornerstone of my salvation. "Mom, we can't," Sam cried, pulling back as fear viscerally tightened my chest. "But what if he knows? What if he leads us to find Jason?" I countered, desperation staining my voice. And as I stood conflicted, the distant sound of footsteps grew closer with every heartbeat, each thud promising betrayal. "Time's up," Lauren interrupted, urgency spiraling her tone again. "We need to go. Now." Yet the ghost of Jason persisted, no longer an echo, but now a looming shadow in my mind. I felt torn between following the current of fear and that glimmer of hope, illuminated by the determined light of a boy who could see my son. "Mom," Sam begged, and I glanced down at his scared face, the profound loyalty he still placed in me. The air crackled with anxiety, time collapsing around us, as I made my decision. "Well, follow. But if it's a trap, it's on you, Eddie." Eddie nodded earnestly. Was that gratitude or something more layered swimming in his gaze? Would he know the weight of the choice I was making? But just as I turned toward him, a sharp crack echoed down the alley, a sound like shattering glass followed by shouts piercing the stillness. "They're coming!" Lauren shouted, her voice rising above the chaos that we all exchanged panicked looks, and I felt the treacherous pull of survival tugging at my very essence. But just as we began to move, a figure stepped into the alleyway, silhouetted against the streetlights. I froze, as dread snaked through me, my fear crystallizing into icy realization. The figure was familiar but twisted, a connection ID unknowingly hidden deep within. That it was someone I hadn't seen in years but couldn't ever forget, a figure from the past, enshrined in betrayal. "You should have stayed hidden," he growled, shadows licking at the edges of his form like a tempest unleashed, and in that moment, the stakes appeared impossibly high, the shadows stretching long and foreboding, those familiar ties of love and loss once again binding us to the choices we were forced to confront. My breath hitched, the air thick with fear, and as Sam pulled at my hand, I could see the fear in his face edging toward a cruel revelation. The past was clawing back, and nothing would ever be the same again. The street felt impossibly small as I stood frozen, every breath heavy with dread. The face before me was a specter from a life I had desperately tried to forget, a life that had birthed my nightmares and sculpted my fears. The stranger's presence was a jagged reminder that past betrayals had a cruel way of resurfacing, and yet here he was, an unwelcome ghost materializing in the flesh, blocking our escape. "James," I whispered, the name slipping past my lips like poison. How long had it been since I had seen him? A decade? Longer? The nostalgia was bitter, I could feel its taste on my tongue. He had once been part of my world, a link to another time when my life felt whole and limitless. Now, he stood before me, embodiments of the choices that had spiraled me into despair. His smile flickered, filled with nothing but malice. "You remember me? How quaint." The tone dripped sarcasm, as if my memories were merely colors splashed across his canvas of indifference. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Sam's hand trembled in mine, and I could feel the weight of his gaze, wide-eyed and listening closely. "Just checking on old friends," he replied, eyes flaring with a predatory glint. "But it seems you've gone and gotten yourself into quite the mess. Running scared with a child and that boy." He motioned towards Eddie, who stood slightly behind me, uncertainty etched in his features yet an undeniable courage in his stance. "You really shouldn't have put yourself in this position, Emily." That I felt a pulse in my veins, rage and fear intermingled into something dangerously volatile. "Don't you dare touch him." I shot back, shielding Sam instinctively. James took a deliberate step forward, a wolf circling its prey. "Oh, I'm not after him. I'm after what he represents. You and your son were always worth more than you realized." A sickening realization washed over me. He had been involved in the very machinations that had destroyed my life, those ruthless games that toyed with power and loss. "You're in touch with the people hunting for Jason?" My question hung between us, raw and heavy. "Perhaps," he replied, his smirk unsettling. "You see, little boy lost is more valuable than you know. The others won't stop. And neither will I." I felt the desperation clawing at the back of my throat, my mind racing. Could I truly trust Eddie's words? "He needs help," I pleaded, but James only chuckled, a sound brimming with mockery and scorn. "Help?" he echoed, before shifting his gaze to Eddie, the kindling flame of something darker igniting in his eyes. "What business does a street rat have with you, Em? You really think you can trust a boy like him? Or anyone else for that matter? You lost your way long ago. Your search has only led you into more danger." That I tightened my grip on Sam's hand, pulling him closer. "You're wrong. I have hope." My declaration sprang forward, reckless and filled with passion. What hope? James scoffed. What kind of mother runs through back alleys, leaving every shred of dignity behind? You play the role of protector, yet you're leading your child to ruin. The world is dark, Emily. You can't save him or yourself from the nightmares that you've been running from. A sudden burst of emotion caught me off guard, and the fury bubbled over like a boiling pot. The past does not define my child. I refuse to let you dictate his future. I refuse to be afraid, but in the depths of my heart, doubt slithered in. The guilt washed over me like a tidal wave, threatening to drag me underwater. Was it too late? Could I still carve out a sanctuary for Sam amidst the chaos? Our time is almost up, they will be coming. Eddie's voice broke through the turmoil, cutting with the clarity of truth. We have to move. Now. As I glanced at him, the determination in his young face shone like a beacon in a storm. Perhaps he could lead the way, a star in a darkening sky. I knew, then, that trusting Eddie was a risk, but the stakes were too high for hesitation. But just as I pulled away from James, preparing to dart down the alley with Sam and Eddie, my heart sank as an ominous rumble echoed behind us. Shadows shifted and morphed, encroaching from both sides like a tide of despair, a haunting chorus of discordant whispers gliding through the walls of our reality. The hunters were near. Run! Lauren shouted, urgency threading through every word like a lifeline. But the shattering realization that our time was slipping through my fingers added weight to my limbs. I turned, pulling Sam and Eddie along, but as we ran, a piercing scream sliced through the night. A sickening feeling gripped my heart. It was a scream that belonged to someone I knew, someone familiar, someone I could not abandon in the clutches of fear. Wait! I cried, spinning around. We can't leave them, they're gone. Lauren yelled, fear flaring in her eyes. We need to go now, but as I stood at the precipice of decision, the echo of a Voician nightmare cloaked in knowing floated through my thoughts, anchoring me in place. You could have chosen a different path, Emily. It was James' voice, casting shadows over the light. As I grappled with my choices, the weight of my past bore down heavily, the line between protector and prisoner growing blurrier by the second. And in that moment of chaos, another figure emerged from the darkness, stepping into the alley to face us, a face I had longed to see, yet wished I could forever forget. Jason stood there, confusion dancing in his eyes. Hope and despair fused into a knot of terror as he called my name softly, the sound echoing like a flickering candle about to be snuffed out. Mom. The world shattered around met his moment held both the essence of hope and the agony of fear that brought it all crashing down. And there, in a heartbeat, everything I fought for hung in the balance, teetering on the knife's edge of salvation and loss. I stood frozen, my heart racing as I processed the sight before me. Jason. My Jason. The boy I had lost, now standing in the dim light of the alley, an apparition wrapped in reality. His expression was weary and searching, filled with an innocence that tugged at the very core of my being. Mom, he asked again, his voice trembling with a sweetness that betrayed no hint of the chaos surrounding us. Tears streamed down my cheeks, overwhelming me as guilt crashed into joy, fear into hope. I wanted to reach out, to wrap my arms around him and pull him from the shadows of the past, yet I felt a multitude of ghosts swirling in the air, and the weight of the world pressed against my heart. Jason. How are you here? The question echoed in my mind, and yet I couldn't bear to ask it aloud. The truth lurked just beneath the surface, a truth that I felt too unworthy to unveil after so much time had passed. Mom, you need to listen. His voice was steady, resolute, as if he carried a weight far beyond his years. They're coming for you. They want to take you away and me. James laughed, a malicious sound that cut through the tender moment like a knife. You think you can just waltz back into her life after everything? After what you've put her through? Shut up. I shouted, turning to him with a blaze of rage. This isn't about you. It's about Jason. About our son. The world felt like it could collapse at any moment, and yet Jason's presence ignited a fierce strength within me. I felt the tether between us, a string of love and loss that had defied time and space. I took a step toward him, ready to reclaim the pieces of my heart, but just as I reached out, Eddie squeezed my hand, his wide eyes swirling with fear. "Mom, we don't have time." The urgency of his words snapped me back to reality. James, wearing the twisted mask of a devil, loomed judgmentally as echoes of footsteps grew nearer. With darkness at our backs, it was now or never, my chance to break free from the chains that had bound my family for too long. I drew in a shaky breath, turning to Jason. "We have to go. We need to run." My voice was barely more than a whisper, laden with urgency. I wanted so desperately for him to understand how much I loved him, that I would do anything to protect him even if it meant stepping into the unknown. Suddenly, the weight of my choices bore down on me. "But, Jason, I was lost. I didn't know how to find you." Panic rose, gripping me with the suffocating shadows of my regrets. His eyes shimmered with understanding, a spark of recognition. "You're here now. That's all that matters. You can still save us." But at that very moment, the shadows morphed into monstrous realities as the figures of the past crawled closer, and I glanced back at Lauren, who was rapidly glancing behind her. "They're almost here," she shouted, urgency cutting into the air. "Go." I yelled to everyone, my voice raw and trembling. "We can't stay here." Jason took a hesitant step back, his earlier levity clouded by doubt, as if the chasm of time and hurt still lay unbridged. "Mom, if you trust me, we can find a way." The shadows of doubt raged in my mind. If I stepped back into this world, was I sure I could protect my son? What if Jason had truly seen the darkness that awaited us all? In that moment, a flicker of clarity pierced through the enveloping fear. Love, unfiltered and unyielding, blazed in my heart. "We will not be lost again. Together, we're stronger." I instinctively reached for Jason, embracing him tightly, letting the love pour out from the deepest well of pain. "I'm so sorry, Jason. I thought losing you meant letting go of everything. I had to survive without you." And as I stepped back, our gazes met, intertwining with silent understanding, the threads of our lives woven into something greater. With every heartbeat echoing through the alley, I felt his spirit wrap around me as hope ignited a spark that cut through the darkness surrounding us. Eddie's hand clasped mine tightly, the boy whose bravery renewed my resolve, drawing strength from the bond that we had forged in the fires of 17 choices and unforgiving nights. "It's time," I said, turning to the others. "We move. Now." We fled down the crumbling alley, a patchwork of flickering lights casting ghostly shadows around us as we hurtled toward freedom. I could feel Jason beside me, a comforting presence grounding me as we tore through the fabric of the night, edging closer to an uncertain destiny yet to be written. But then I paused, racing thoughts unfurling like aggressive petals in my mind. At the alley's end, a boy stood waiting, a reflection of our lost dreams, a soul whose gravity pulled at my heartstrings in a way I could not comprehend. Had Eddie known what lay hidden in the shadows? As we reached him, he looked up with tear-shimmered eyes. "You found him," he murmured softly, astonishment lacing his tone. "You found Jason." Each heartbeat felt monumental, a drumbeat resonating with time and love, reminders of all I had lost. Until now, my entire life had felt like a series of labyrinthine passages without purpose. Just as I grasped the magnitude of this moment, a flicker of light shone in the distance, a warmth pushing back against the shadows that pursued us. Inspired, I turned back to the faces: Jason, Sam, Eddie, and Lauren. Together, we were ready to face the converging storm, to reshape our destinies tied together. And no matter what comes next, I said firmly, we are together. I won't leave you again. And in that infectious spirit, we surged forward, united against the rising tide and footsteps echoing behind us. Through the darkness and the impending chaos, one truth remained: love was unstoppable, and together, we would reclaim our story. As the figures tried to close in, we unleashed our hearts and raced headlong into the light, racing toward the promise of a future reborn, the air thick with hope and redemption, with the sound of rain now an embrace wrapping us in a love that transcended everything we had lost. We let the light inside guide us through the maze. As we breached the alley's end, I felt Jason's fingers interlace with mine, a beautiful, poignant connection, symbolizing not only reunion but the unbreakable threads between mothers and sons, the frailty and strength of love leading us back toward life. And as my heart soared against the backdrop of the storm, echoing in the cadence of Jason's laughter, I understood we had not lost our way. We were simply coming home. In that luminous moment, it was clear, hope would always light the darkest of paths.